The noise of battle was deafening. Insectoid creatures were locked in deadly combat against reptilian warriors. The sheer number of bugs made it clear who would win. Warlord Karm hefted his sword one last time. He was all that stood before the chitinous horde and his emperor. He swung his sword, killing 4 drones. Then his chest was pierced by dozens of stingers. As he fell, never to get up again, the last thought in his mind was not of the screams of his emperor, the end of his people, or even the pain of his wounds. All he felt was shame. I die in battle as every Antirian warrior should, yet I know Barocton. God of war, he who rests on a bed of thorns will not welcome me, for I have dishonored myself. If this was all, I could die in peace, but the choice I made 2 years ago dishonored all those under my command. As his consciousness began to fade, he made a silent plea. I wish I could turn back time, not to save my people, not to keep my honor, but so the warriors under my command could rest by Barocton's side. Warlord Karm was woken up by his aide. Aide. Sire, the council awaits you. Warlord Karm blinked his confusion. His aide and oldest son Korm was standing in front of him. Warlord, take me to the council. During the long walk to the meeting room, Warlord Karm tried to get his thoughts in order. This is impossible. This makes no sense whatsoever. There has to be some reasonable explanation, right? Warlord Karm sat in front of the council and was presented with a dilemma. A small human mining colony was in the way of the Klopros army. Honor dictates that they should divert forces to evacuate the civilians. The problem was that the war against the Klopros was not going well, and to send warriors to cover the evacuation would leave core Antirian worlds undermanned. Last time I made the pragmatic choice and the humans colonists were slaughtered, their armies too preoccupied fighting each other over some crystal-rich system. Their retaliation was brutal, however, and the campaign they waged against the Klopros gave us an extra year to prepare our forces. Not that it changed anything. He remembered painfully how many dying soldiers refused their last rites after this event. No one ever said anything or acted differently with me. They followed their orders, even if it broke them. And the council members stared at their warlord for what seemed like an eternity. After being told of the problem, he had closed his eyes without saying a word. The Emperor's shadow was going to ask a question when Warlord Karm opened his eyes again. He was grinning. Warlord, we saved the stupid hairless apes. Honor demands it. All members of the council nodded and chorused. Honor demands it. Warlord Karm was looking over the battle plans for the defense of Arteria Prime. I have less troops than last time, and I will be facing nearly double the number of Klopros, and yet I couldn't be happier. As he was preparing to make the Klopros pay for every inch of his planet, his aide burst into his office. Aide, sire, you have to look at the data net. Warlord Karm didn't bother to look up from his plans. Warlord, sorry son, I have a last stand to prepare. I'm thinking of wearing my green armor, the one your mother loved so much. Karm's son was lost and a little frightened by the change to his father's demeanor. Before the council meeting he had being stoic, his face a mask of grim resolve, but now he was smiling while preparing battle formations he insisted on drawing with finger paint. Nonetheless, he put his datapad in front of his father and played the video. An Antirian warrior, covered in wounds, armed with a rifle, was holding a makeshift barricade as his fellow warriors died in droves to afford the human civilians the time to flee. The human filming the scene moved closer and asked the warrior, "Why are you doing this for us?" Warrior, the strong protect the weak. Honor demands it. Human, we are Deathworlders. We are not weak. The warrior stopped shooting long enough to look into the camera. Your warriors do not defend you and your governments abandoned you. You are the weakest of the weak. The camera shook as the man filming was dragged into a shuttle. The angle shifted and the young man, tears in his eye, looked into the camera. Young man, the weakest of the weak. Warlord Karm nodded. A fine Antirian warrior. I'm glad he died doing his duty. He returned to make plans, but was stopped when his son refused to remove the datapad in front of him. Aide, there's more. Before he could explain, a soldier ran into his office. Soldier, sir, a fleet has dropped into orbit. This is too soon. We should have a few more days. I don't even remember where I left that green armor. Warlord Karm, prepare for orbital bombardment. Move all troops to the bunkers and... Karm's son put the datapad in front of his eyes again. A bald, uniformed human was talking. Human. Today the Arterians have taught us a sobering lesson, and it was unanimously voted that such fine people should not be allowed to be destroyed. Warlord Karm's large communication screen lit up with a priority message. The same bald uniformed man was there. Warlord. Yes? Admiral. I am Admiral Francis with the 3rd Fleet of the Terran Alliance. We are here to help the Anterians defend their worlds. Warlord. Seriously? The Admiral nodded. Warlord. Oh. Okay. Admiral. I will land in 30 minutes to prepare the counter-offensive. Warlord Karm was confused, unable to process what had just happened, and then he laughed until he couldn't breathe. Admiral Francis was on the bridge of his flagship, the reasonable response, and looked at his first officer quizzically. Admiral, am I insane, or did the warlord have blue and red paint dripping from his claws? After humanity joined the fray, the flow of the war shifted overnight. The extra troops, firepower, and the knowledge Warlord Karm had from his years of battling the Klopros allowed them an easy victory. After the war, the humans created the Red-Blue Claw, a military fleet unaffiliated with any major human power but financed by all. Whenever a war front moved anywhere near a human settlement, it showed up and broadcast in all frequency a simple message. Humanity is not weak. No one who has tried to put this to the test has lived to regret it. As for Warlord Karm, he did something no warlord had ever done. He relinquished his rank. He taught military strategy and combat at the newly created Arterian Academy, a concept borrowed from the humans. As his health declined, all those who knew him asked him, begged him to take arms one last time, to die in battle even if it has to be at the hands of pirates or some other low lives. The Emperor himself offered to give him his rank back, but he refused every time. And now he was on his deathbed. His friends and family had gathered for the occasion, as had many of the then junior officers he had served with. He was given a powerful stimulant so he may recite a prayer to Barakdun, so his soul may be welcomed by the god of war. Kahram, Barakdun, god of war, he who rests on a bed of thorns. Karm stopped and looked at the faces around him. No, this is good enough. Karm, Barakdun, god of war, he who rests on a bed of thorns. Karm closed his eyes. Karm, thank you. Thus Karm the Glorious, the man who saved his people from annihilation and led them to victory, died without honor, having refused his last rites. With a smile on his face,